Wednesday morning, I woke up and I'm like, wow, another day is about to go by and I'm missing out on this opportunity to talk about the biggest moment of my generation.
If you could go back and think about the tweet that went viral, would you still put it out? Or, I mean, would you think about
Absolutely.
that? Yeah, all
right. Absolutely. Wouldn't change it for the world.
All right. All right, what's up, y'all? Today we're talking to Alexis Johnson. She's a journalist with the Pittsburgh Gazette. A recent Twitter post of hers went viral, and now she says she's been barred from covering the U.S. protests. So we're going to talk about that interchange between social media and where that gray line is, and she's going to give her advice to young Black and minority journalists. Please enjoy our discussion. All right, so tell me a little bit about what's going on. I mean, you got yourself into a bit of controversy, so tell us about that.
Yeah, it's just so odd because, as a journalist, you're never supposed to become the story. And like everything is, I'm not used to being on this end of this conversation, But, basically, I work for the Pittsburgh Post Gazette here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the largest newspaper in the city. I've been here almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in October. And May 30th, we had our first protest in Pittsburgh after the death of George Floyd at the hands of Minneapolis police. We've seen the protests happening all over the country, so we kind of knew that Pittsburgh would be gearing up next. So that definitely happened. There was some rioting, some looting, just like, mirroring of what we've been seeing around the world. And then Monday morning, I woke up and sent a tweet that was like, look at these scenes from these looters. And it was like, oh, wait, these are just Kenny Chesney photos, and Kenny Chesney is a country singer. He comes and packs out Heinz Field where the Steelers play every single year. It's a thing in Pittsburgh. It's like a running joke. Like, the city has came out and like spoken out against Kenny Chesney concert goers because of how much trash and stuff they leave behind. You know what I mean? So I just quickly Googled like Kenny Chesney. If you look up Kenny Chesney tailgate, all these pictures of trash and stuff come up. So I sent it and kind of just went on about my day. I'm very, well versed in social media. So that was just a tweet that I sent out and didn't think much of. And by that night, it had went viral. It was like maybe only like almost 30,000 retweets by that night. And the next morning, I had reported into work. I sent a bunch of stories that I wanted to cover that were protest related to my editors. And they told me to kind of hold off until they spoke with me. And then at that point, I kind of knew what was going on because when I first came in, I'd seen that our managing editor, Karen Kane, sent a newsroom email that was a reminder of our social media guidelines to everybody. But at that point, they hadn't directed anything to me. So, once they told me to hold off on the protest coverage, I'm like, I bet you it's about this viral tweet. I was only thinking because it had gotten so much attention. And sure enough, a couple hours later, management called me because, we're all working from home, and said they were taking me off this coverage, because they felt that my tweets showed bias and that the credibility of the newsroom would come into question if they were to put my byline on anything related to that tweet because my opinion came through in the tweet. So a week and a day later, and here we are. I'm still not officially reinstated, and a whole bunch of other things have transpired that we can get into. But that's where it all began.
For sure. Okay. So, and then like in terms of got to play like devil's advocate a bit too. I mean, is there somewhere like the where you can talk about like the consequences of social media and where, like, it's a new space that everybody's still figuring out, especially on Twitter, right? So like, how do you navigate that line now that you've been on the other side of it too?
I know. I mean, it is a slippery slope. But we, you kind of know that going in. But I think, these kind of rules of objectivity and having to be fair and be quiet on, any social justice issues or anything like that were kind of created before social media came around, when everybody had a platform, when everybody, before everybody had a platform, I should say, and before everybody was kind of given a voice on all these different outlets and stuff like that. So I think that those rules are changing. I think they're constantly changing. I think they should change. I think that, at the end of the day, we're people first. When I log out of work, I'm a Black female, and these issues are very much playing out in real time in my community. So, even though I don't even think that tweet was so opinionated or, had any real meat to it as far as how I was really feeling on the inside, I do think that, there should be some kind of conversation about particularly journalists to kind of have some space to be able to express themselves, because I don't think that is a reflection, as long as it's not, there's a line. Obviously, the line is like, don't say anything, right? So I think there is kind of some wiggle room and some gray area, and it may be a case-by-case basis about when we can actually, speak on certain topics and still be able to do our jobs fairly and accurately.
Definitely. So I mean, exactly like you said, it's navigating where that line is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you were saying like it was also like how you're feeling when you leave work as a black woman in Pittsburgh. So can you talk about that? Like, what is that
Sure.
for you?
Yeah, I'm from Pittsburgh. I'm a Pittsburgh native, so it's no secret that I was excited to cover this story. I wasn't here when the shooting death of Antoine Rose Jr. happened at the hands of a police officer. I was working in another city at the time, but I knew what was going on back at home, and to have obviously um, it's almost a much bigger movement now than it was back then. It's not as personal as it was, but those people were still out there protesting for Antoine at the same time as they were protesting for George Floyd. So, I really was looking forward to being able to be that voice in my community. There's less than 10% Black reporters at the Pittsburgh Post Gazette, and I don't think any of the reporters. We do have like web desk and things like that, but I'm not sure how many of those Black reporters are actually from Pittsburgh. So I really was excited to kind of bring all those experiences. My dad is a retired state trooper. My mom is a retired probation officer. They both worked in law enforcement my entire
Wow.
life. I'm constantly having these conversations
Yeah.
with my dad about what he's seeing. You know what I mean? And he'll tell you the system is broken. He'll tell you, some stories that he went through in his 25 years of being a state trooper that are kind of reflective of what we're seeing. So I think the Post Gazette is really missing out because I was able to bring those kind of nuanced point of views to this story. And, here we are almost 8 days later, and I'm still not able to do so.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so like, isn't that like the good thing about community and city papers, because you're telling the stories from inside your community, and that's
Mm-hmm.
really interesting about your background with both your parents
Yeah.
being in law enforcement. So I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of this. I mean, I'm in Bangkok right now, so I'm seeing a lot of it from the outside. I don't know what the real sense is in America right now. I can only
Mm-hmm.
see what I see on social media, right? But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of this defund the police movement,
Mm-hmm.
and like, or even actually like abolish the police. And I was having
Yeah.
a conversation yesterday with somebody about it who was really like for getting rid of the police system in general. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a bit of a far stretch for me to
Yeah.
wrap my head around. And I mean, is there a lot of that going on in Pittsburgh, or is that?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of that. I mean, I think maybe right now in Pittsburgh, from what I'm seeing, because I'm not covering it, is more about reform and kind of addressing some policies, or adding some policies in that maybe will hold the police in the city a little bit more accountable.
Yeah.
But I have been seeing the conversations play out about the abolish the police kind of movement, and from what I've been seeing, I don't want to kind of give too much on it because I haven't read up enough on it to kind of be an expert on it. But from what I've been seeing, I think people's points are that we need to put more of this money and these resources into the community, because then that will take crime down. Steady policing people is not going to take crime down. People are robbing banks because they're poor. People are committing these crimes because their education system has failed them, or the prison system has failed them, or their family, or things like that. So I kind of understand. I understand what it's about, but I don't know if there's that much push for that specific statement here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. And can you talk a bit about like what it's like, in the newsroom in Pittsburgh as a minority Black woman, and how that journey, first of all, how you got there and what it was like when you started,
Sure.
and the whole journey. Yeah.
Yeah, I got my master's from Temple University in 2017 in media studies and production, and I actually started out in television. I was an on-air reporter in West Virginia for like 8 months or so. Quickly learned that I didn't really like that route. There's not enough money in it for me. So I went to digital news, and I was working in New Jersey. And then I finally got the opportunity to come home and work at the Post Gazette in 2018. And it has been welcoming. Like, I've been telling people I haven't had any real issues specifically towards me with these managers up until this point. I thought we had a pretty decent relationship with most of them. So, I kind of was really taken aback when I felt like I was being singled out or targeted in such a strong way. And there's not to say that there weren't microaggressions that I may not have seen or, at this point, maybe kind of immune to. Sometimes you kind of just want to, believe that you gaslight yourself a little bit, right? Like, is that decision made because I'm a Black woman and they don't really respect me as much, or am I just making that all up in my head? You know what I mean? So of course there's moments like that, and I'm sure there's moments like that for people of color in every industry, especially in corporate America. But this is pretty much the first time I felt it, so strongly, and had really kind of a strong case of discrimination, because there was a white male reporter who at the same day, on the same day I should say, was spoken to about his conduct over on social media that same weekend on the same topics, the same issue. We were both spoken to that Monday, but I was the only one pulled off protest coverage and he wasn't. And he actually was able to write a story about protest related issues the very next day. And then our union president was like, well, wait a minute, like, well, you called Alexis and this reporter on the same day. Why was she handed down this punishment and he wasn't? And it wasn't until they pointed that out that they pulled that white rail reporter off of this coverage. So, like I said, it is pretty deliberate. It's kind of kind of have all this proof of this double standard, but I hadn't really felt like that. There have been stories where I've pitched that surround the Black community that you kind of feel like you had to push a little harder for, and I'm sure a bunch people of color and newsrooms across the country have experienced the same kind of thing. So I have had to kind of know that I got to frame this a little bit different. I got to make this story about this Black topic extra special, for to kind of catch my editor's attention and really think that it's worth covering. So that I have experienced.
And what about the the support you've got? Because I saw that you have like the News Guild backing you up right now, and there was last I read it was 3,000 letters from community.
Yes.
So
it's been so overwhelming.
So what's that like? I mean, what's that like, knowing that you have this group of support around you?
Yeah. So that Friday, our guild board, I should say, they all kind of came up with this idea that they'll all just tweet the same exact tweet that I got punished for, and with the hashtag I stand with Alexis. And pretty soon it caught on to people that weren't even a part of the guild. We had people in competing publications in the city tweeting out support for me, tweeting my same tweet for me, tweeting hashtag I stand with Alexis. And by the end of that day, I think I stand with Alexis was trending on Twitter in Pennsylvania. So it was just like, I knew that it was coming. And, so when I started seeing it and I'm scrolling through my mentions, and I really started crying. I really did. I just busted out into it. So I was like, first of all, I cannot believe this is happening. This is before it really got any national attention. So, it really did feel like, a local kind of support, local people having my back. Our mayor, Bill Peduto, had tweeted support for me. Our lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, he tweeted support for me. So, we got some senators to tweet for me. And like I said, I didn't ask for any of this, quite frankly. And with all the support, with the signatures, there was a separate petition going around specifically for me that got 3,000 signatures along with the guild's letter of support. So it really just validates how I was feeling. It validates that I'm on the right side of this. After I got off the phone with management that Monday, I called my mom immediately, and I was pissed. I was like, I cannot believe that they're doing this to me. I was just so frustrated. And then Tuesday morning, I woke up and was like, wow, I cannot believe I'm not covering this. And then Wednesday morning, I woke up and I'm like, wow, another day is about to go by, and I'm missing out on this opportunity to talk about the biggest moment of my generation. So that was when they kind of put the pressure on management to say, hey, reinstate Alexis by 3:00 or we're going to file a grievance. And management refused again. So they filed a grievance on my behalf, and now there's lawyers involved. So it really has just become this utter mess. But I'm glad that I'm just so thankful that the people were supporting me so loudly and so fearlessly. It really showed what it meant to kind of be an ally to a minority in a workplace when they express that they're feeling some type of microaggression or discrimination or something like that. Because a lot of times we don't feel seen or heard when we're able to say like, hey, this is really how I'm feeling.
Definitely, definitely. So, I mean, do you feel like that's also part of, we were talking about the pros and cons of social media and like one is a
Hmm.
consequence of this,
Hmm.
but now you're seeing in a way the other side where you're having this huge line of
Yes.
support. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's
The irony of it.
yeah, that's the irony and the
Yeah.
power of what
Yeah.
social media and where the world we're living in now, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
so what do you think? What's next? What happens next?
I wish I could tell you, man. I mean, I I didn't expect to get a call at 7 o'clock last night and say, "Hey, can you be in Houston and cover this protest?" But I mean, this sorry, memorial service by noon tomorrow. It's
Yeah.
like the Post Gazette kind of has a history of these sort of situations where they're in the national spotlight for race related issues or controversy surrounding race or bipartisanship or things like that. This is not the first time at all that they've been in this rodeo. So you know, they kind of seem to get over the hump each time, and not really making the best decisions going forward. So I have no idea. My coworkers have been retaliated against. Some of those people that participated in the I Stand with Alexis campaign, they had their stories taken off of our website and reposted the next day without their names on it. I mean, it just Michael Santiago, he's a Black photographer. He was one of the first people to really speak out for me early before the campaign even started. They took him off of protest coverage right away and told our photographers they can't cover anything protest related over the weekend. I mean, everybody has really gotten the brunt of this. When all they had to do is just, they're spending all this energy doing all these things when all they have to do is just apologize to me, reinstate me, and then move on. So I wish I could tell you where this is going to go next. The ball is literally in their court, and all we've been demanding is that they apologize publicly, they reinstate me, and they stop retaliating against my coworkers. And I think those three things are actually pretty simple that they're making really, really difficult.
And I would say it must be difficult to, like you said, see like the biggest protest movement of your generation as a
Yeah.
journalist and not report it. I mean, I even feel
Yeah.
like that from being at a distance. Like I'm in Bangkok, and
Right.
a part of me was like, man, this is huge. I want to
Yeah.
be there, but I
Yeah.
mean, I'm here, and this is a good place for me right now anyway. But it's just
Yeah.
and there's bound to be news here as there are protests here and there's protests in Hong Kong. But
Right.
it's when it's that sizable protests in your hometown or your home city, your home country,
Yeah.
it's definitely different.
Yeah,
So
it is. 'Cause
are
like I
you?
said, I can't participate in them, so it's like
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
literally have to watch from the sideline.
So from what you're seeing, what's the how do you see the protest movement evolving, and where is it going?
In Pittsburgh, they're still going. We started out with a couple few huge ones with like thousands and thousands of people, and those kind of got a little bit out of hand. But now we're seeing kind of small ones here and there, different areas, different smaller communities around the city. So I don't think that this is going to end, because people aren't just crying out for the death of George Floyd. Like that moment, has brought up um, so much anger and so much pain for people that they've experienced. Like I said, like those people in Pittsburgh were not just marching for George Floyd; they were very much marching for Antoine Rose Jr., who was only murdered. I think that was 2 years ago. So all this stuff is very prevalent, very fresh in people's minds. People were marching against gentrification. People were marching for a better school system. So it kind of just opened up Pandora's box, right? To people like saying, like, we are fed up, we are sick of this. And, I saw them saying this today at George Floyd's memorial, but he absolutely changed the world. It's a shame that he had to give his life to do it. Now, we had to literally watch it happen on camera. All these things have to happen before people are like, oh, okay, we get it now. He had to die. He had to be at the hands of police. It had to be in such an egregious way, and you had to literally watch it play for this to happen. But I think it really birthed so many different things. You're seeing all these different companies have to respond now. You're seeing people resign. So I'm excited. I really am, and that's why I keep doing these interviews. That's what's kind of keeping me going in this fight, because I know it's so much bigger than me. I know that, like I was saying to somebody else, like, you know, these things are being exposed in different industries all over the country who is journalism to think we were exempt. You know what I mean? It was only a matter of time before we got called to the table to talk about race relations in newsrooms and stuff like that. So if I had to be the one to kind of carry this for Pittsburgh or whatever the case may be, I'm totally okay with that. And I'm excited to see what comes of it.
So you mentioned also like the other companies, and can you talk about that and what you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, everybody is saying, hey, you guys, profit off, Black lives. Like, where's your stance? Like, where are you donating? And you know what? The most interesting thing to me kind of has been seeing like celebrity culture just completely just die. Like, it kind of was like fizzling out after COVID because everybody was sitting at home. We were kind of all on the same playing field. But now, after seeing some of these celebrities like stick their foot in their mouth or just just say the wrong thing.
What have you seen with that? I'm not sure I saw.
I just been seeing, like, they'll tweet the wrong thing, or there was a lot of backlash when people were looting, and people were saying don't mess up this business, or whatever the case may be. But I've just been seeing a bunch of stuff on social media where people are like, if these celebrities aren't donating to this cause, then we're not gonna buy their music anymore, whatever the case may be. So like I said, it's really in every single industry. You've seen what happened with Roger Goodell in NFL. He came out and apologized and was like, yeah, basically in so many words, it said Colin Kaepernick was right, even though he never said his name. So like I said, journalism was bound to get swept up into this larger conversation about race relations in this country and all over the world.
And so with all that, where do you think the whole protest movement is going, and what are the outcomes that you see from what you've been seeing in the protests and hearing in the protests?
Hopefully to some real change. I mean, hopefully to some real change, because I don't think people are going to stop. Oftentimes we see these stories that are similar to George Floyd's, and we're angry, we're riled up for a couple weeks, a couple months, and then it kind of dies down until the next one happens. But something about this energy feels a little bit different to me. We're seeing a lot more non-people of color come out to protest. So I think that makes a huge difference. And like I said, as a much smaller example, the people in my newsroom, our newsroom is 90% white. And, most of our guild has gone to bat for me, like I said, fearlessly, without fearing, being punished at all. And people are just speaking out about, human rights. It's not just civil rights. It's like, human rights and right and wrong. So, like I said, hopefully it's always, cloudy before it's bright, or whatever that phrase is. So hopefully we really see some real change happening here. And people will think back to this moment the next time, something else comes up, because people are quick to call people out now. So I'm just hoping that it really does spark some real change, because it's long overdue, right? I mean, it's 2020 and we're still talking about these issues. So it's a good step.
So if you could go back and think about the tweet that went viral, would you still put it out? Or, I mean, would you think about
Absolutely.
that? Yeah, all
right. Absolutely. Wouldn't change it for the world.
All right. Cool. And so what kind of, I was doing a lot of these interviews just with journalists to give advice for people who are coming up. Like, this is something that, I wish I came across a lot of these videos before I was like farther along my path in journalism, just to kind of get some experience from people who have it. So,
right.
If you had, a piece of advice for, I mean, maybe for you specifically, somebody who's a Black woman starting off young, what piece of advice would you give yourself when you're starting out, and what would you tell somebody else who wants to get into journalism, has that burning desire to tell the stories of their community?
Right. Continue to speak out. Like, that's the only way that things are going to change. We're so used to kind of taking these hits and kind of just wanting to survive. We just want to go to work. We just want to make it through the day. And, and we don't want to cause too much fuss. We don't want to be seen as the angry Black woman. We don't want to be seen as controversial. And, you pick your battles wisely. You're not going to win all of them. You're not going to win all of them, but they are all worth fighting, because you speaking up might encourage somebody else to speak up, even if you lost that battle that one time. You know what I mean? So and you'll be surprised on how many people will support you. Like I said, I'm just completely in awe by how many people have came out and said, Alexis, we're behind you. We're with you. People I don't know, believe me, complete strangers. And they're just messaging me and DMing me. My phone has been going up nonstop. So, it may not be as clear cut as my situation is as far as, right and wrong. But if you feel it, there's no smoke where there's no fire. So just always speak out for what you believe in. And if it costs you, whatever it costs you, the reward will be much greater, because that's just how karma works. So, as long as you feel like you're on the right side of things, I encourage you to just continue to speak out. If you feel like you've been mistreated at all, continue to fight for your stories. Sometimes, like I said, it's easier to just go with the status quo. But if you have to put in that extra work to get your stories and your communities told, then it's what we have to do. It's literally what we have to do, or else we're deleting history. We're leaving out exposure to these communities that deserve it, and that just only perpetuates this huge cycle, and see where we are at now. And and my advice to editors and managers is to hire more people of color. I mean, this diversify your newsroom thing, this conversation has been going on for too long. And we're seeing the critical mistakes that you can make if you don't have, people from different perspectives in these decision-making positions. So, seek mentors out, I would say, for young Black journalists. That has been a huge help for me. I'm a part of the National Association of Black Journalists Society. And soon as this blew up, I was getting messages left and right from, the top of the top from that organization. Our local chapter has been backing me. They put a statement out on my behalf. So, you're not alone. I'm sure whatever you think you're feeling, somebody else has gone through it. So I just encourage everybody to keep speaking up, because that's the only way anything's going to get fixed around here.
And so with the mentors, like, who were the first mentors you had, and what kind of things did they teach you along the way? Because I agree, I think mentors are huge. And probably in everything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've almost tried to seek an ally out at every job I had. It started off when I was a production assistant at NBC 10 in Philadelphia, and I was working weekends, and there was the weekend anchor. She was a white woman, and I was just so in awe by her work ethic, so I just automatically started saying, hey, was there anything extra I can do to help you? I made sure that, I was always attentive. I had my own reel. Like I said, I went to TV originally, so I sent her an email whenever you get the time. Can you look at this for me? Those kind of things. I just have an open personality for the most part, so I never had any fear of asking for help and asking for critique, because I really wanted to get better.
Definitely.
And we still keep in touch to this day. And like I said, being a part of NABJ has been completely life-changing. You go to these national conferences, and there's thousands and thousands of other Black journalists that look like you, that can relate to your experiences. You're listening on these panels where you can get these great advice and stuff like that. So just seek out your community. Just seek out your community, because that is literally what we're there for. Sometimes we're always trying to fit in, get the praise of, these other people, we really want them to like it. But, sometimes you really just got to lean on the people that, will support you 100%. So that's really been helpful for me.
So have they reached out to you personally or made a statement on your behalf?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
Awesome.
Well, I'm good friends with the president of our Pittsburgh chapter, because I'm a member. But yeah, it has made it to the national level, where the National Association of Black Journalists has put out a statement on me and Michael Santiago's behalf, and that's, like you said, it's huge. Right? It's like they're in charge. Our membership is thousands and thousands strong, so they're able to amplify this situation. And they were reaching out to our managing editors on our behalf and things like that. So there are, tons of resources out there for journalists of color.
Cool. All that sounds good. I mean, anything else you want to cover on and talk about?
I think we covered everything. Just keep speaking up, man.
Yeah.
Just keep speaking up. That's what people are doing in these streets. That's what people are doing on Twitter. That's what people are doing, just everywhere at this moment. And it was just crazy that this happened to me during this moment. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I spoke out against flowers and I got taken off flower coverage. You know what I mean? It was like, no, I spoke out against social injustice during a social justice movement. So yeah, everything happens for a reason. So I'm just really in tune with what this time what this time is bringing, and I'm excited about it.
Cool. Okay. Well, things will pass. Things will get better as they always do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
keep me updated. I'll be watching out.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Cool. All right. Alexis Johnson, thank you.
Thank you.